Okay, so here we have question 6 of the 10.3 homework. So this is a little bit different from 10.2 because instead of working with proportions, we are working with means. This question doesn't specifically say mean, but this right here, this X bar, is the symbol for sample mean. And so when it comes to the test, when we have it all mixed together, that's something that you can look for to figure out if we're dealing with a mean or if it's a proportion, then it'll say a proportion like the last test. So the first thing that we're going to do is identify the null and alternative hypotheses. And so our null hypothesis is always, so they already have the mean symbol filled in right there. And our null hypothesis is always going to be an equal sign. And in this question, it says that the researchers randomly selected 14 adolescents with alcohol use disorders to determine whether the hippocampal volumes in alcohol adolescents were less than the normal volume of 9.02. And so in this case, our null hypothesis is this number, the 9.02. And these guys are trying to figure out if in this other sample, if it's less than that number. So we're going to choose the less than sign and put in that same number. These should always be the same. Okay, now we're going to find the test statistic, or the t-statistic, or there's a couple different names for this number, but the t-stat. And so, just like in last test, in chapter, I think it was chapter 9, maybe it was chapter 8, we would go into stats, and we would go into t-stats, because we're talking about a mean. A mean means that we're using t-stats. And we're only talking, it only gives us the data for one sample, and so we're going to go to one sample, and then with summary, because that's what it gives us. And we have all of this information. All this information can be imputed into here, and so that means that we selected the right thing. So we start out with the mean, which is this X bar, and then the standard deviation right there. And then the sample size, it said that they selected 14 adolescents, so that is our sample size. And now we're going to use a hypothesis test. So we're going to make this look exactly like this. Another indicator that you selected the right thing in StatCrunch is if you have this mean sign, it should also have a mean sign. And if we're in proportion stats, then it's a P. So these have to be the same thing. We'll click compute, and our t-stat is right there. And then our p-value is right there. Okay, now we're trying to decide what this means. And so our p-value is what we compare this level of significance right here. And so we're going to compare that. So I'm going to write my p-value is first. And this is my level of significance. And so my p-value is 0.000. I'll put a 1 just for fun, you don't have to. And my level of significance is right here. And that is 0, I'll put a 0 there too, 0.01. And so my level of significance is greater than my p-value. And the rules say that if my level of significance is greater than my p-value, then I'm going to reject the null hypothesis. because there is sufficient evidence to claim so the claim that they're trying to prove, they said whether the hippocampal volumes in the alcoholic adolescents were less than the normal volume of 9.02. So this is what they're trying to prove. And so there is sufficient evidence because our p-value is less than the level of significance, that this mean is less than that 9.02. Hopefully this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. And that's how you do this one.